Hey, welcome to day 3 of our Purpose Challenge. Super excited for this day. It's a beautiful day out here in North Carolina. Sun is shining, weather's starting to get a little bit cool. So it's just a great time to be, I guess, a great time to be alive. I'm just so super pumped. And today's purpose area that we're going to focus in on is physical body. And I'm so excited about that. It is an area that has been prevalent in my life. So we've got Sybil Marie that is going to present, and then Kristen. Kristen is actually not available live today, so we've got an amazing video that she put together. And as always, at the end, we're going to be able to go through some questions. I'm also reworking the whole system for you accessing the fast action sheets. We had some technical issues there. So you should have received in your email today a link to the first 3 days so you can get back to all of those sheets. And God willing, over the weekend, I'm going to be able to put together a whole new membership area for you that will be easy to navigate. So that is something else that we've learned through this process. So again, super excited for today, and I want to bring on Alana to get us going with the prayer. Come on over, babe.
Hello, everyone. All right, I'm going to start us out in prayer before Sybil gets started. We're super excited to hear what she has to share with us today. Lord, thank you for this beautiful, beautiful day, wherever you are, whenever you're watching this video. We just pray that you will be open to receive everything that is given and presented today. We ask for your guidance, your wisdom, your peace, your calming spirit to come over Sybil and as she presents, and just let your words flow through her, and just for her to have confidence, and just for everyone just to listen to your words and just receive them. Like I said, we just pray that you will get new knowledge to grow and to just, renew our minds and just take us on this journey together in community. And we love you. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, babe. All right. I want to tell you a little bit about this whole physical body area and share with you kind of a story about my life in terms of physical body. So right after I gave my life to Jesus, right after I found God, God found me, I found God, I turned to God. This is what transpired. This is one of the many things that transpired in my life. I had, at the time, I was on a couple of heart meds because I had this heartbeat issue that would, flame up on me. And so anyway, long story short, I was on heart med that my cardiologist had said I'm going to be on for the rest of my life. And of course, I'm stubborn. I'm like, no, there's way. And I kept trying to get off them. And all of a sudden, the issue would pop back up. And so needless to say, I was still on the meds. God comes into my life. A friend of mine introduced me to these LifeVantage products. It was a network marketing company. And I met somebody named Cassie Teal, who was kind of the upline. She was the person. I knew nothing about network marketing, so this is my first time. So Cassie, at one point, after I started working with the products, at one point she goes, well, I want you to come to Kansas City, like in 2 days. And I'm like, okay, because those of you who know me, I'm an upholder. So I just like, all right, I'm going to go. So I literally went to Kansas City and I sat in, and there's this dude that gets up there and he's talking. He's got a cowboy belt and a cowboy hat on. He's from Texas. And I won't go through the whole story, but it's a funny story. One day, asked me about that story. But at the end, he referenced Jeremiah 29, where he said, God works all things together for good, the whole thing. And I'm sitting there going, holy cow. Because again, brand new to God. And what he says to me, and the way it was given to him, was he had met a couple. He went to talk to them at their house. And at the end of the night, they said, oh, strangest thing, we just moved into this house. And there was this envelope that we found in the attic as we were cleaning out things and getting to know the house. And it had this guy's name on it. And they said, we don't know anybody with that name, so we thought we'd give it to you. And that was this Jeremiah 29, God will work all things together. And he had just said to his wife before he left for this meeting that I'm not doing this anymore, because his wife they had twins and the twins were crying. And so he was about to quit doing what he did, and he got this letter. So here's me sitting in a room in Kansas City with over 500 people hearing his story. And I just sat there and thought, okay, God, I'm paying attention. All right, I'm paying attention. So long story short, these products helped get me off of heart meds. Totally. I got back to my high school weight, never felt better, and I've never felt better to this day. I feel like every year I'm getting younger instead of older. So that's kind of my physical body story and why physical body is so important. And for me, until God came into my life, I had a death sentence of I'm going to be on these heart meds the rest of my life. And through God coming in and then me paying attention, saying to Cassie, yeah, I'll be there, driving 4 hours to get there just on a whim, and then hearing him and the whole thing. And as I shared the other day, these kinds of stories for me have continually popped into my life because I'm following the Holy Spirit. So as Sybil comes on to chat with you today and share a little bit about the physical body area of Life Transformed, just remember that, as I said in the beginning, be open. If you come to this challenge with an open mind, not a skeptical mind, come with an open mind and allow these words, as Alana prayed so beautifully, allow these words to resonate with you. Allow them to sink into you in a way that, whoa, just imagine, think about any of these sessions that we're going to be going through. Maybe there's one word, maybe there's one thing that I'm going to get out of this. Maybe there's this one aha, oh, this is why I'm here. Maybe you're going to get that too. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sybil, and I'll be back at the end to kind of wrap this up. All right, Sybil, it's all yours.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Robert, for that intro. Alana, for the prayer. I'm happy to be here. It's Friday. I love Fridays, you guys. So how wonderful that I get to present today for you guys. And if you're watching this recording on a different day, get the feeling of Friday moving through your body because your emotions actually control a lot of how your physical body reacts and works. So I'll touch on that. I am going to share my screen. I'm coming to you today. My name is Sybil, and I live in Nebraska currently, have been my whole life, working on moving along. But I really just come to you today as a person who can hopefully help to empower you, inspire you, like Robert said, give you a little golden nugget that like really resonates with where you are. Because honestly, we all have a physical body and we're all in a different space. And so the message that I really hope to bring to you guys is one of true empowerment and finding joy on that journey to putting yourself in the driver's seat confidently, and really feeling like you have a hold of the wheel with a little Holy Spirit guidance. That's really what led me into this in the beginning, to share a little bit about how I even came into the world of physical wellness. Just so you guys know, I was never interested in the medical field. Blood and guts and that kind of stuff. I am so squeamish. I mean, if you have a sliver in your finger, I cannot help you. Like, that creeps me out. So it's funny that I found myself in a position, and it actually came through an intentional prayer. So I prayed one day. I was 27. I remember it very vividly. I prayed one night really intentionally that God would use my gifts and my talents to serve. And literally, lo and behold, the next day, somebody who I'd never met walks into the restaurant that I was working at, sat at my table. It was a very busy lunch shift, and their food was taking forever. And I was just thinking, like, oh my gosh, like, they had a little coupon that was a Be Our Guest coupon, meaning they had a bad experience the last time. And all I can think about is, like, I want these guys, I want to serve them well. I want them to have a good experience because it's clear they had a bad one before. And it's funny because that whole time, the woman was with her husband and her 2 kids. And the whole time she wasn't even thinking about how long their pizza was taking. She was thinking about how to bring up plant medicine and essential oils to me, because she said I was so friendly and I was so attentive. And she's like, I loved your personality and your spunk. And she's like, so I was sitting there not even thinking about how long your pizza was taking. So it's funny looking back on that, but she wound up inviting me to a class. She'd asked if I'd ever used essential oils before. That is my specialty, and I will touch on that today, but I'm going to talk about a lot of other things as well. But she'd asked if I ever used them before. My mom had kind of gone on a journey the year prior, had kind of gotten really frustrated with Western medicine and wanted to help herself. And so I had a little bit of experience through my mom kind of sharing that with me, but I wound up going to this class the next day, which that was back in my 20s. I usually used to like say I was going to do something and then I would flake out and be like, oh, can't make it, whatever came up. Well, something had really moved me to just show up at this class. I take a friend with me. I spent an hour learning about plant medicine and it totally rocked my world. It blew my mind. And I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. I want to dive in. I'm somebody who, when I find something interesting and I want to learn more, I just dive right in. So that's what I did. And now it's 7 years later, and I have been so personally empowered. I have learned so much. I've done so much personal development. So I don't have a lot of fancy titles, but I have spent many, many hours just really diving in and learning and getting hands-on experience in the world of natural wellness, because I truly believe that we were created intentionally to be a part of nature that is here to serve us and us to serve it. It's this beautiful symbiotic relationship that we have here with this big blue green planet that provides us food through plants, it provides us medicine through plants, and that's all by intentional design. So the title of my presentation today is You Are Sovereign, You Are Capable, and it's time to tap in, because if you can understand a little more about sovereignty, which I'll dive into here next, and then if you feel equipped with the capability to do more of these things and engage in your own personal wellness journey and story, and then you take the time to tap in and just tune into your body. Our body is constantly sending us messages. And I mean, pain is a message. Your skin flaring up or having like a rash or something, and you're like, what's that? Those are messages. That's an opportunity for you to tap in, to see what's going on and to get to the root of things. And Western medicine has just really decided that just going to give these pills for all these ills and treat symptoms or address symptoms, but really never address the root cause. And that's gotten us into a place where we have the highest disease and cancer rates that we've ever had. And it's continuing to grow. Childhood cancer rates and diseases are skyrocketing. So it's like there's a disconnect. And I truly believe the disconnect is our disconnect from nature. So I hope that you guys find this presentation inspiring. And hopefully it gets you guys to move in a way that will really help you be your own best advocate. So here's some of the things. I'm going to break it down. We're going to talk about exercising your sovereignty. That part gets me pumped up. We're going to go over the current evaluation of self, which will be part of your best action sheets. And I really just want to encourage you guys to enjoy the journey. It is a journey. It is different for everybody. Everybody starts at a different place and your endpoint might be a different place, but it's really about finding joy in your life while engaging with yourself and your body. We only get one, right? This journey gives us this one body. And so it's best if we know that we are capable to take care of it in a way that is really fulfilling and will help us to live a long and healthy life. I personally have a goal to be a healthy 100 because I really do want to stick it out and see a lot of things. My great grandma lived to be 99, and I can only imagine all the things she saw in her life. And so I want to follow suit and just do that in a way where I can actually experience life through the whole thing, And then I'm going to talk about implementing change, how you can actually take some of the things that I'm going to talk about, present to you today, and actually work them into your life in a way that is going to help you keep these habits. And then a little bit about visualization. So sovereignty. This is something that has come into my awareness in the last couple of years, because as we know, there's really been this kind of war on our personal medical sovereignty and our just sovereignty as these human beings who have this divine right. God gave us free will, which is a beautiful thing, but he also gave us the ability to kind of discern for ourselves what's best for us, and what's best for one person may not be what's best for the person sitting next to you. And so it isn't fair for any sort of entity to come in and try to tell you that you must do something this way because that's the only way. So I am a firm believer in sovereignty, which means autonomy, independence, your own self-government. And that really gives you the platform to stand on, to really be your own best advocate and make your own decisions based on what you know is best for you. Now, as we go through this, there's going to be a lot of things that you see where you can tap into community and find like-minded people and, learn about all different things. But ultimately, you get to decide what is best for you and your family and those that you are, responsible for helping to take care of. And so I just really think that when we believe in our own sovereignty and we stop getting into that wheel of the oppressor and the oppressed, or playing the victim. Victimhood is something that is a really detrimental on your physical body as well as your spiritual and emotional body. But once we recognize how directly connected to source we are and how intentionally and divinely created we are, it really makes you fill up with this like courage to be able to go out there into this big, crazy, chaotic world, and really like stand your ground, and advocate for yourself, whether that be your physical wellness or anything else on the gamut, really. So I just wanted to preface this with sovereignty and how it is something that each of us has that divine right to, and let's tap into it and own that. So checking in, this is part of your fast action sheet, and there's great breakdowns on that sheet. So once you get in there, like Robert said, he sent that email with the updated hub, and you guys will be posting in the Facebook groups more about that. And there's actually a part as well of this. Once we go through it, I want you guys to share your pit and your peak, meaning the one that you're doing, the area you're doing the best in, and then the area that needs the most work. So we all have an area that is going to be our lowest, and then we all have one where we're like, oh, we're doing pretty good here. So let me break these down a little bit, because these are the areas, as I talk today, most of the things that I'm going to talk about moving forward will fall into one of these categories. But there's so many different things within each of these that you guys are going to get a little taste. We're going to scratch the surface, but there's a lot more that you can dive into within each of these. And so within our community, we actually offer a health summit, and I dive into some more of these topics more specifically. So if there's one of these areas that you're like, oh man, I wish I could get more info on that, there's plenty more of that goes on within our community. So take note of that. All right, let's start at the top. As you can see, these top two, these are the healthcare aspect, and then the bottom four are all lifestyle. So proactive medical care means understanding that in some cases you do need to go to the doctor, and it's important to be aligned, and this goes back to sovereignty. It's important to be aligned with medical professionals who are on the same wavelength as you. There are many different doctors out there, and just remember, doctors work for you. So if you find yourself in a medical facility of some sort and you're needing care, and they're really going against everything that you believe in, and you're like, I don't want to do that. For instance, one of the ways, mothers who give birth to babies, they make a birth plan, and you kind of vet through different caregivers who are in alignment with the things that you want for your birth plan. And so just know that, and I think a lot of people, I'm from a small town, and so like there wasn't a lot of choice growing up, and I was a kid, but now that I'm older, I make sure that when I'm developing these relationships, because it can be a really powerful bond between you and your healthcare provider to really help keep you on track for ultimate wellness, because that way that they are going to give you trusted good advice that is in alignment with the things that you believe and you want for yourself. So things like chiropractic care, a naturopath doctor, even just having your own family like MD, just make sure that that you get to be the ultimate decider on whose care you take, and having a positive relationship with that person or many of these people that are in the different fields of their expertise can really help you in your healthcare and physical wellness. So the next one is informed self-care. This is the area in which I teach a lot about, because 80% of the things that go on within your physical body can be treated at home with natural products. This is where the true empowerment really comes in. And it's like, yeah, you can do this. This is exactly what nature is here for. Nature, plants as medicine is the very first type of medicine. It isn't this new age, like, oh, we just recently found out that these plants can do cool stuff. No, all plants are the basis of all of the synthetic medication that pharmaceutical companies create. How they kind of figured out what to make is because they studied plants, and plants that were doing these jobs in our bodies in a natural way that our bodies recognize and can easily utilize, and then they man-made it to make it, there's a lot of different things. We won't go into all that, but there's 80% of things that you can handle at home. And think about the time that saves you. It saves you a ton of money being able to do some of these things at home with just some basic knowledge about the empowerment tools that you can keep in your home. But informed self-care goes a really long ways, because this is the part that really puts you in the driver's seat. And this is where community also comes in. I'll touch on that later. But how you can learn from others like-minded, and really give yourself a foot ahead of the game. So reducing your toxic load, talking about things that people don't know. Reducing your toxic load is one of the easiest, most fun, engaged thing that you can do for yourself. Your family can get involved. It's a great way to educate your children alongside educating yourself. Myself and Kristen both have some apps that we're going to suggest to you guys here later on, of ways that you can learn about reducing your toxic load and things that will help guide you along the way. But this, honestly, so reducing your toxic load, I want you to think about, so when you're rating yourself, I want you to think about household products. Obviously, that's a thing. Like, are you using really strongly scented things? Like synthetic fragrance, anything that has fragrance listed on the label is something that you definitely want to cut out, which may seem crazy because so many things have fragrance, but you want things to be scented naturally, which is why I love the world of essential oils. Everything can smell so good. And it's natural, but synthetic fragrance is responsible for so many things that go wrong in our bodies. It's a huge hormone disruptor, and it just really adds to the body burden of toxicity. And that comes with everything from like shampoo, your lotions, just like those things that you're using as lifestyle products, even burning candles. But something else that people don't really think about when you're talking about reducing your toxic load, I want you guys to account for this. Think about the input that you have coming in. If you are watching fear news every single day for hours a day, even minutes a day, and that fear is coming into your input every single day, that is something that is a huge toxic load to your body, because those emotions that are being put through your screen or the radio or however they're coming in, that is having a physical reaction in your body with those emotions of fear that are coming in. So understanding that emotions have those physical reactions in our body is important. So think about that. If you have negative input coming in, maybe it's you work around a bunch of negative people at your job, or you have somebody who's really negative, or like you're in a close relationship with somebody who's constantly negative. That is adding to your toxicity, which may seem crazy. It's not a household product, but it definitely attributes to your physical well-being, because emotions, just so you guys know, I'm gonna lay this out here, your emotional body, your physical body, and your spiritual body are all intertwined. There is no separating them and just treating one without having an effect on the other. And so think about that when you're thinking about rating yourself on this, reducing your toxic load. Rest and managing stress. This is a part that I think most people are like, yep, I need some work there. So getting good rest is super important. I'm going to talk about some things that will help you in that area. Managing stress. Stress is such a killer, honestly. So much stress on your body, from your workplace to oxidative stress and all the things in between, really take a toll on your body's immune system and its ability to fight off foreign pathogens and all this stuff. So getting a good hold, you need to get good sleep. They say that sleep is the new like status symbol. Like if you get good sleep, you're like, ooh, you're like up there, because so many people don't. And a lot of that is because of all the environmental stimulation that we have around us constantly that like keeps our brain going. We're so busy and you've got stuff to do and deadlines. And so then that adds to stress because you're not getting enough sleep, and this just creates a snowball of madness. So when you rate yourself here, just know that there's a lot of things that you can do. So don't feel too bad if your score is really low. There's help. Exercising, obviously physical activity is really important. The body in motion stays in motion. That's what they say, right? So exercise does not have to be strenuous. If you are parent and you're running your kids around and you're carrying baby carriers and you're vacuuming and you're going up and down the stairs 100 times to get toys and do laundry and all that stuff, I count that. Like that counts as physical activity. Getting outside and riding your bike, going on walks, taking your dog for a walk, all those kind of things. Even just the minimal exercise daily or pretty regularly is really, really good for you. So you're going to rate yourself lower if if you have a sedentary job where you're sitting all the time. And you really don't go on walks or do anything like that, you're going to rate yourself lower. But you can rate yourself a little higher if you just do some of these things that are like daily chores or activities that maybe are not going to the gym, but they're actually getting your body physically moving. And then rate yourself even higher if on top of that, you're going to the gym or you're doing kickboxing or whatever those kinds of things are. And then eating right. My friend Kristen Hotop is going to come in, as we said, and she's going to present to you guys a little bit about labels and learning how to read and understand them. But what we put in our bodies and the fuel that we give them to do what they do every day really, really matters. It is important. And so we'll cover that a little bit. So rate yourselves on that. You don't have to do it now, but that's kind of the breakdown of that. And in the fast action sheet, you'll see even more of a breakdown. So let's move on. This is my favorite quote. This is something that when I first came into really taking responsibility for my own health and wellness, this has stuck with me. And it's something that I continue to echo out because I think it's so important and inspiring. Your body is capable of healing itself. Okay, read that again. Your body is capable of healing itself. Most of the times, your body doesn't need these synthetic medications to take over the job that it was literally created to do. What it needs is the right support tools so that it can do the job that it was created to do. That's why diet's important. That's why physical movement's important. Managing your stress is important. Getting good sleep is important because guess what? When you're sleeping, your body has all these restorative processes. And if you've fed it good food and you've thought good thoughts all day, and just all these things accumulate into like your body being so regenerative and restorative. So I love this quote. And that's going to shift us into being naturally empowered. This is the area that, let me check my time here. I'm going to make sure. All right. So, turn my alarm off. Okay. So grounding and gazing. This goes into the category of a few different things. Grounding is something that I have found to be very beneficial. I've learned a lot about this recently. And there is a call to action at the end here that will give you way more information into grounding. But what grounding is, some people call it earthing. It's literally being barefoot or having your bare skin touching something of the natural world, preferably a large, like if you take your shoes off and stand outside in the grass, that's grounding. And what's crazy is what I've learned is we can carry up to 20 volts of electricity in our body every single day from just think about like cell towers and your cell phones in your hand and screen time and all of these things around us. They have electromagnetic frequencies that can get into our body as voltage, like electricity, and they wreak havoc. So if you're not doing things to protect yourself or release that charge, inflammation is a direct cause of that. And it starts wreaking havoc on your body. And then you start having all these different sorts of inflammatory diseases. So grounding is free as well as gazing, and I'll touch on that. But getting outside in nature and spending time in nature, there is so much science, you guys, behind how that is beneficial for your body. I mean, think about the last time you went to the beach. And they always say, oh, you're near water and it like really helps. It's not even just the fact that you're near water, it's the fact that you're usually barefoot on the sand and it's helping your body to release that voltage in your body, and you physically feel a shift. And you usually emotionally feel a shift too, because you're just like, it's so beautiful and wonderful out here. So spending time in nature and getting grounded is incredibly valuable to know that you can do that and have a big impact. Like 5 minutes a day is what they recommend, or 20 minutes a week at least. But it can be so easy and such a fun way for you to do that. I want you guys to think right now, when is the last time I was barefoot outside? Some people have a really hard time remembering when that was. And if you look back over time, rubber-soled shoes, believe it or not, were a huge turning point for inflammatory diseases, which inflammation is really at the root of like almost every disease. And so when rubber-soled shoes came around in the 60s, it literally disconnected us from earth, from the frequencies that help us to discharge that voltage and really receive this like beneficial, like when you're touching your skin to skin on the ground, you are getting, your body is like being charged with the energy from the sun that hits the ground. It's this whole crazy cool thing. And there's a movie I'm going to reference in the end for you guys to learn more and watch more about this. But it is profound, the benefits that can be gained from spending time in nature and getting in contact with it, like literally physical contact. And then there's gazing. This is something I know less about, but I know enough about that I wanted to share it with you guys today. Sun gazing is something, this may sound crazy. Some people will be like, oh no, here she goes. She's going to go off on a woo-woo tangent. I just want to tell you guys that most of the time when people don't get good sleep, it's because the lighting that you're being exposed to on a daily isn't keeping your circadian rhythm in balance. And so your circadian rhythm is like the internal clock of your body. And back in the day when we used to not live in these little boxes and work jobs that were inside, we were outside and you rose with the sun and you went down with the sun. And that's how we were created to work. Our bodies, the timing on our bodies is set to that time. And so if you can go out and gaze at the sun at very first light, obviously don't go stare at the sun when it's super bright. You may go blind. Don't do that. But at the very first light and the very last light, if you go out and you gaze at the sun and take that in for even just like 30 seconds to a minute, it's going to really help to reset your circadian rhythm and get you back in that natural rhythm that your body's internal timer is set to. For people who have babies, they often recommend that you take your babies outside during the day. Like, their sleeping schedule gets really off if they're never exposed to natural sunlight. And so that's a big part of the sleep and the rest and managing stress category. And it's free. It's beautiful when you can see the sunrise and see the sunset. Like, and then you can do it barefoot and you can kill two birds with one stone. Like, these are ways that you guys can be really naturally empowered and it doesn't cost a dime. Now, plants with a purpose. This area is really my wheelhouse, and I'm not going to spend too much time here, but I do want to let you guys know that this has been the most personally empowering part of my journey over the last 7 years. And it's really taught me so much about how the physical body works. Like I said, I wasn't into the medical field or any of that. So I was just like totally clueless in terms of so many things. And I have learned how interconnected our bodies are, and how they are so intelligent. Like, you don't have to be as smart as your body to use plants as medicine and to let those plants do what they know how to do. You just have to be the facilitator who is like, okay, I'm going to learn a few things. I'm going to incorporate that. And then my body is going to reap those benefits. So everything from, all those categories we talked about before. So like, there are plants that can help you sleep. I specialize in essential oils, but also herbalism and herbs is another way you can go about it. So you'll hear me reference using oils often, because to me, it's the simplest way. I don't have to have this huge garden and like all these jars of stuff. It's much more concentrated. And there's a whole, I do teachings on this. There's a whole caveat of different like quality levels. So when you are using plants as medicine, you want to make sure that you're getting them pure, because there is no regulation. You'll hear Kristen talk a little bit about the whole like diet and nutrition world and food, how there's no regulatory body over much of that, the labeling and all that. Same is true for plant medicine. There's all sorts of different ways to cut corners in that world. So you want to make sure that when you're doing this, you're aligning with a company or people who are providing you these plants as medicine, to a level that is like medical grade. So I always recommend CPTG, certified pure tested grade essential oils when you're using that. But I teach a lot on this. So if you're like, oh man, that sounds like a lot to learn, it's really not. As long as you are partnered or like can get input from somebody who's been in the know of that. So I love to do that for people and kind of help people along that journey, because it is a new thing. A lot of people don't understand that, like, oh, I can use a little lavender before bedtime and it's going to help me go through those REM cycles. Like, it does. And it's amazing to see how it works. So whether it's your immune system that you want to target, or if you want to get better sleep, or you have physical pain in your body, and beyond just grounding, you want to have something that you can put, like your knees are achy and breaky and you want to be able to use something directly on them, there is so much opportunity for you in the world of plants as medicine. And being proactive. That's one of my favorite things. You don't have to sit and wait for something to go wrong. Here in the Western world, which I assume most of us listening right now are probably from the United States, but over in Europe, they do things way different and they're way more proactive, and their health looks different than ours because we are so reactive here. We're taught to just be sitting ducks and then wait till something happens, which when something's bad enough, you have to go to the hospital, which is not for healthcare. You guys, hospitals are great for emergency medical care. And those 20% of times when you break your arm or there's big things like that, you need to have like heart surgery or something like that. But most of the time, hospitals don't help you get healthier. The last time you went to the doctor, did they ask you what your diet was? Probably not, because they're not trained to do that. They get very little trained in diet and nutrition, which is a huge part of your overall health and wellness. So not dissing on any doctors, I'm just saying that system is not set up for you to be proactive and to really engage in your daily lifestyle and your daily wellness. And so you kind of have to take on that role yourself and learn about all these opportunistic things that are here and provided for you in the natural world, that can help you overcome some of the discomforts, some of the ailments, even specific diagnoses. It's amazing what can happen when you start looking into the world of like, what plants can help me with this? Like there's the internet, which will help you learn a lot. There's great books and resources, and I love to connect people with that. All right, so moving on to diet and nutrition. I'm just going to give a little caveat here, and then I'm going to turn it over for Kristen to present. But diet and nutrition, like I said, your doctors don't usually even ask you what your diet is, and that's the thing that fuels your body on the daily. It's very important to eat whole foods and foods that are clean. Unfortunately, another knock for the Western civilization is we use so many pesticides and chemicals and genetically modified seeds within the diet and nutrition world, like within our food, that it's created this really big mess, and it's being seen all over the place. I know Kristen's going to touch a little bit about dyes and all that kind of stuff. And this is an area that I recommend that people spend time engaging with and learning more about, because some people just don't know what they don't know and don't understand that maybe some of the reasons why these things are going wrong in your physical body are simply linked back to the diet and the fuel. You know, if you drive a vehicle and it needs diesel and you put in regular fuel, you're going to break the engine. Like that's not good. The same is true for food. So it's important to make sure that what you're putting in your body is going to be beneficial for it. I'm not saying be perfect, because I'm not. I shoot for 80-20, honestly. And sometimes I feel good about 50-50. So everybody's on their own journey there, but being more mindful about it and having some of these tools and understandings will really help you guys gain more confidence in this area. So Robert, I'm going to let you turn that over to Kristen's video. I will stop sharing and I will be back.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I am super excited to be here with you as part of the physical body segment of the Life Transformed Purpose Challenge. Now, I'm sad I couldn't be there in person, but I am coming to you from this recording, and I'm glad that I could still be part of this day. So we're going to talk a little bit about labels today, but if you missed it, my name is Kristen Hotop. I am a certified holistic nutritionist and a gut health and nutrition coach. I've been involved in the health and wellness world since 2018, dealing with and resolving my own personal health issues through knowledge of gut health and nutrition. So I am here to help you and others if you are dealing with those sorts of issues. So labels. It's important to know what it is that we are putting into our body, because what we eat determines how our body functions and how we feel each and every day. So it's critical to recognize that what we put in is what fuels our body, and what helps our body repair our cells, create new cells. And so I oftentimes ask people, do you want to be made out of a Dorito? Because if you're eating Doritos, then that's absolutely what is going to happen. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to talk a little bit about label format, what you can see on those different labels and what they mean. We'll also talk about what to avoid, and then some better choices that you can make. So let's dig right into that label format. So it's important to recognize and remember that we're looking at more than just calories. So don't just look at that nutrition segment, don't just look at the calories, don't just look at the fat. It's important to remember and look at a totality of that nutrition label, all the different things, all the different ingredients, all the different possibly added sugars, what types of fats are in there, all those different types of things. You also want to remember that ingredients are in order by weight. So whatever that first ingredient is that's listed down there in that ingredient list segment is going to be the most or the heaviest in that product. And so definitely look at what's listed first. Is it sugar? Is it some sort of a grain? Is it some sort of a bleached or enriched food products? So definitely take a look, see what those labels are telling you about those products. And then if we're talking about the ingredient list, see how many ingredients are listed there. Ideally, you want to pick food products that have less than 5 ingredients, but also recognize that those ingredient lists will include the closest name or title to that ingredient. So it may not be something that we readily recognize or that we're most familiar with. So if you see ingredient on a label and you're not sure what it is, Google it. Find out what it is that is being put into your food product. The next two we're going to talk about go together, the health claims and the nutrition claims. So the front of the package is where companies are going to put those keywords, those buzzwords, trying to get you to grab that product off that shelf and put it into your cart and make that purchase. So some of the things you might see on those labels include natural flavors, fat-free, sugar-free, healthy, heart healthy, lowers cholesterol, all those different types of buzzwords that we see on commercials, we hear on TV and the radio. They're going to put those on our boxes and products so that we will be enticed to purchase them. So you want to look at whatever those health and nutrition claims are and compare it to what the actual label says. Are they substantiated? And there's no judge, there's no governing body that's making sure that those health and nutrition claims are accurate. So you as the consumer have to do your own work. You have to check it out. You have to see, is it truly heart healthy? Is it truly natural? Make sure you're looking at those labels. The other thing I want to talk about is natural flavors. So again, there is no regulation, there is no set standard for what natural flavors means. So I should put those in air quotes, natural flavors, because companies can decide whatever it is they want to call those natural flavors. And oftentimes they're not natural. They're going to be these artificially created ingredients that make these frankenfoods and harmful to your body oftentimes because they can cause inflammation and they can are not easily broken down and digested by your body as well because they are synthetically created. So be cautious of natural flavors. And then also watch for enriched. So enriched is usually listed with an ingredient when they've had to add something to it because during the processing, they took out some of that ingredient. So for example, if you see enriched flour as an ingredient in your label, it's usually because they've bleached it during the processing and then they had to add back in some of those nutrients. So you're better off just getting a whole food ingredient, a whole grain, a whole wheat in order to avoid that bleaching and enriching process. All right, so that's your clue or your key to look at and substantiate those health and nutrition claims. And then the last thing we're going to talk about here on this slide is expired time. So check the expiration dates, those shelf stable times on your foods. Those are super important because the longer the shelf life, the shorter your life will be. So let me talk about that. I saw that phrase the other day and it really stuck with me because the longer the shelf life means there's more preservatives in those foods. And preservatives, if you think about what that is, it's going to preserve the life of the food. It's going to make sure that it doesn't expire, meaning it doesn't get bacteria, it doesn't get fungus, doesn't have any other microorganisms growing in it. And think about how they would make that happen. Well, they're going to put ingredients that act like antibiotics in our body. That's because truly that's what preservatives are. They act like antibiotics in our bodies in order to make sure that they don't get those microorganisms growing into the food. So the longer your shelf life is of your food, translates into the shorter your life will be. So avoid those long shelf life foods. Think back to when our grandparents and our great grandparents had foods, or we'll say great and great grandparents. They didn't have refrigerators. They couldn't make the life of those foods last longer. So think about the types of foods that they were eating. They didn't last very long. You had to eat them within a few days. So that's the type of foods that we would recommend in order to be healthy. And we'll talk more about that as we go through. So that's a little bit about the label format. So let's talk about some foods and things to avoid. So here in this segment, we're going to talk about added colors, synthetic vitamins, added sugars, processed and refined grains, and then once again, we'll touch on those preservatives. So added colors. These are easy to see on your labels if you are turning them around, if you are checking out that information. So make sure you are looking. These are super key, super important. So you can see the title of this graphic is The Colors We're Dying For. So added colors have been shown in studies to have negative impacts on the human body. And you can see some of these on here: hyperactivity, possibly cancer, other negative effects. In fact, a lot of those show hyperactivity as a side effect of these added colors. So anytime that you can avoid added colors, look for foods that are colored naturally, such as with beets or other colored foods. Maybe they're colored with blueberries. So those are going to be much healthier for you than these added colors. Next is synthetic vitamins. So synthetic vitamins are added to a lot of different foods. They want to make their foods healthier, but synthetic vitamins are man-made. So your body doesn't know how to break them down like they do natural vitamins that you find in foods. So if you are looking at even a multivitamin, you want to make sure that one is bioavailable, which means that your body knows how to break it down. And one of the examples that we want to look at in foods is folate versus folic acid. So a lot of different foods have folic acid added to them, which is the synthetic version of folate. So it's super important to make sure that you're looking. Anytime you can pick a food that has folate added to it, your body is much better able to break that vitamin down. Now, synthetic vitamins, because our bodies don't know how to break them down as easily or as well, sometimes they will end up being stored in the fat cells, stored in the body, and these can in some cases cause harmful levels of those vitamins to build up. So be cautious on those synthetic vitamins that are adding to the food. Other synthetic vitamins aren't absorbed at all and are simply flushed through the body and into the toilet. And so synthetic vitamins are either absorbed and create toxicity in your body, or flushed through and have no effect on the body whatsoever. So again, check those labels. The next thing we're going to talk about is added sugars. So there are now over 200 different names for sugar. So even if you are reading your labels, you have to really be cautious, really be aware of what it is that they are putting into the body. So the natural sugars that are found in foods, those are okay. You're wanting to look at the label for those added sugars. Added sugars is what we want to be cautious of. So your body can break down those natural sugars, but then when we start to look at natural sugars such as brown rice sugar, honey, monk fruit, stevia, and sugars in fruit, your body knows how to break those down, but there are still names for sugar. We get in trouble when we're looking at those high fructose corn syrup. Your body does not know how to break that down. And that is one of the leading causes of obesity in the United States, is because we are eating all of this high fructose corn syrup and all of these other added sweeteners and sugars. Now, also be cautious on your label where it says no added sugars or zero sugar. Look at the label, see if they're adding these artificial sweeteners such as sucralose, aspartame, saccharin. Your body treats these sugars differently, and they can be harmful to your gut. So in fact, if we talk about the sweetener sucralose, they have artificially changed the makeup of that sugar to add in a chlorine chemical. So anytime I can, I avoid products with sucralose in them. So again, be very cautious, know what those different names are for sugar, be reading those labels, and be cautious of those artificial sweeteners as well as those added sugars. Then processed grains. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier when I talked about enriched. So processed grains, much of the good stuff is removed during that process. So if we look at a brown rice versus a white rice, they start out as the same food, but the brown rice is polished and much of that good stuff is taken away, and you end up with this white rice food product that they then have to enrich to add those nutrients back in. So if you can select that brown rice, that brown flour, those nutrients and parts of that whole food are still included in that food product. Preservatives, here is that quote once again, the longer your food lasts, the shorter your life, because those ingredients act as antibiotics in your body. So if we look at the word antibiotic, it means against life. And so it is going to be damaging those good bacteria that you've got in your body. It's going to be killing off those good guys. And when we eat those foods, those are damaging to our gut. So what can we do? Some better choices include eating whole foods, selecting local produce, and looking for foods with minimal packaging. So preparing foods at home gives you control over the salt, oil, and sugar that is added to your foods. And even if those recipes call for you to add some of those things, they are still much less than what you would find in foods at restaurants and foods in those packages that you find on the shelves and in the freezers. So let's talk about these things. Let's start with that whole food. So what is a whole food? A whole food is one that grows in the ground, on trees, or on bushes. It's something that you can pick and eat. That is a whole food product. So definitely select those whole foods anytime that you can. If you just spend a little bit of time chopping those up in your kitchen, or buying those frozen food products. Now, I'm not talking about the frozen processed foods. I'm talking about those frozen vegetables, those frozen fruits. Sometimes those are even more nutritious than the ones that you find in the produce department, because sometimes those frozen foods are flash frozen. And so they are faster from the farm to the freezer than what you will find in some of those other foods, which is what we're going to talk about here next in this local produce section. So it's important to choose local produce anytime that you can. So go to those farmers markets. That shelf time or time from farm to table is much less from those local farmers, because they're coming from their farm to that farmer's market and you can buy it directly from them. Now, the supermarkets and other stores that you're buying produce from, sometimes those foods were picked 6 months before you buy them. So sometimes I used to work in a grocery store, and sometimes those foods were picked before they were ripe, and they were artificially ripened during that transport process through gases and other means. And so it's really important to make sure that you recognize where those foods have come from. How long have they been in this transportation process? How long have they been sitting in somebody else's warehouse or shelf? Because all of that plays a role into the nutrition value that you get when you eat those foods. So buy that local produce anytime that you can. And then let's look at a couple benefits of fruits and vegetables. So here is the health benefits of a vegetable, buying that whole food product. And you can see it's got many nutrients, vitamins, and minerals, and it can help you with many different things, including boosting your immune system, which if you watched any of our health summits, you know I talk a lot about the gut housing 70% of your immune system. So it's super important to make sure that you are taking care of your gut, and eating whole foods can help you do just that. Now let's look at a health benefit of a fruit. So this is a strawberry. Again, you can see it's got many vitamins, nutrients, and minerals in there. And also that same little thing there, it helps boost the immune system and helps prevent the risk of many other things. So feed your gut the things that it loves, and that includes those whole foods. All right, so minimally processed, that is the last thing that we're going to talk about here. So minimally processed to me includes those foods with 5 or less ingredients. And as you're looking at those different packaging and different things, anytime you can buy a food without an ingredient label, you are going to be much better off, because they're more likely to be those whole food products. Grab them from your local farmers market. The other thing, if you are buying a packaged food, look for those foods that do have 5 or less ingredients. If you can buy let's talk about a packaged salad. So a packaged salad is often more expensive because they've chopped it up for you and they've put it in that package, but it's still closer to a whole food than it would be if you were buying a frozen TV dinner that's going to have those preservatives, those added colors, all those other added things that we've talked about here in this segment.
That was so good. I love learning about all that. I hope that you guys, I mean, even me having a background knowing a lot of these things, there's still like, I did not know that about sucralose, that it has chlorine in there. So that was crazy. I know those things aren't good, but when you can get a little more information on why something isn't good for you, it really like turns on a light bulb. So I will remember that forever. All right, I'm going to share my screen again. I do want to mention she let me know. So it's the Daily Dozen app. There's also a Dirty Dozen. Like if you're buying produce and you're wanting to know if it's okay to buy it organic or just regular, there is something that you can look up called the Dirty Dozen. And so she's like, I just left it because I know you're probably going to mention the Dirty Dozen anyways. So yeah, the app is the Daily Dozen that she was talking about there. So let's go back on over here. We are going to talk about habit stacking, but first I want to talk about these few little things briefly, because there are ways to. So, we talked about being naturally empowered. Well, some personal empowerment that is really good for every person to consider incorporating into your lifestyle. Number one is awareness. The more awareness that you can gain around all sorts of different things, the better off you're going to be. And at least consider, new perspectives. Staying open-minded is a big thing for continuing to learn and to grow. And so having awareness and gaining new awareness can be really, really good for you. So one of those awarenesses is how much power you have in the breath. Breath work is something you can look up different YouTube tutorials. There's an app that I'm going to share with you guys about like meditations and stuff, but your breath is very powerful. And I read this beautiful thing about Yahweh and how the sound of Yahweh, the way it's spelled out, which is one of God's names that he goes by in the Bible, it's literally the breath. Like he is the breath that fills us and allows us to be here and living and existing. And so it's no wonder that breath work and controlling your breath and tapping into your breath can be so powerful. So if you're somebody who deals with a lot of stress, anxiety, just different things that can be really overstimulating and overwhelming to your being, getting breath work and understanding you can just tap to that any time is really powerful. And then there's the power of visualization. I have a slide at the end of this that kind of goes into a little more of what visualization is. But if you can hold the vision for what you want your life to look like and who you want to be, what your physical wellness could be, and what you want to bring into your life, and holding that vision and creating space for that. Here at Life Transformed, we often talk about, having a dream and having these big dreams and truly like believing in the ability to really bring that into reality. Visualization falls into that. Like that is a big part of it. So that's something like you can practice breath work and visualizations, and that can be something that's really personally empowering. Also, again, it's free. Mindfulness and gratitude, check that off on the free. Gratitude changes everything. It really does. I'm super grateful to be a part of this community. I'm grateful to have ears that continually show up to listen, be it a set of ears or an audience of ears. Like we just really, I know I speak for myself and everyone else here, that we're really grateful to be able to create a space where we can have a platform to share things that have helped us and to hopefully inspire and co-create along other people who are just on the journey of seeking and living your life to its fullest potential and on purpose. Here in this purpose challenge, we really want you guys to just understand that we're all created with a purpose, and having gratitude for just waking up every single day and being here on this crazy journey is such a big deal. And so creating something like a gratitude journal and creating mindfulness around, a lot of the things Kristen talked about in those foods. Like if you have mindfulness over certain degrees, like dyes, you guys, I could go off on a whole tangent on dyes. I won't, because I'm going to stick to time, but just something as simple as that, like the dyes and the artificial sugars, having mindfulness around like, okay, now I'm aware of that. I'm going to be mindful. I'm going to choose something different. Like that is power in your daily life. So creating gratitude journals, having mindfulness around the people in your life, the experiences that you get to engage in daily, having mindfulness around the kind of energies that you're, bumping up against every day. If you're in a soul sucking job and it's really, you've got all these health problems going on and you hate your job, like if you're not waking up with something to be grateful for and with joy somewhere in your day, I promise you, with a little bit of recalibration, you can tap into that. It's here and available for everybody. It's really part of it's a mindset shift, which Alana is going to talk about. So I'm super excited for her to kind of incorporate some of that into your guys's awareness, because that is something that can be really, really awesome. And it is awesome. And then engaging in community. That's what we're here for at Life Transformed. We understand the power of community. It would have been really hard for me to learn everything and to get where I am now if it weren't for the other people that I aligned with and started showing up in these communities. I mean, I learned so much through the natural holistic living community in terms of essential oils, in terms of plant medicine, in terms of all these ways that you can be supporting your body. There's books, there's blogs, there's so many ways to get involved